Hello students. As we have discussed the numerical problem and conceptual problem based on the topic atoms, and there in the chapter atoms number of topics were there that is very important. We have discussed numerical problem based on the models. After that we have discussed numerical problem based on Bohr model and its consequences and the postulate or theory, values that is derived from the Bohr model. With the help of Bohr model we can easily calculate the radius of any circular orbit, velocity of moving electron, kinetic energy, potential energy, wavelength whenever it is making transition from higher energy state to lower energy state. So they all that problems we have discussed here. And X-ray spectroscopy, I just told you, an energy level diagram. So it means that overall we have just discussed whole of the chapter atoms here. Let's see one more numerical problem that is asked in examination paper, and after that we will discuss today the chapter nuclei. And first of all, again we will do the same procedure. We will discuss the theoretical problem like derivative problem and conceptual problem. After that we will discuss the numerical problem based on all that theories. So here question, it is from 2014. It is given a 12.5 electron volt electron beam is used to bombard gaseous hydrogen at room temperature, up to which energy level of hydrogen atom would be excited. So this question I have just discussed yesterday also. Whenever any electron that is in ground state and we have just used electron beam of 12.7 electron volt energy, then obviously this electron will be excited and it will go in any of the excited state. Here we have to find out first of all in which excited state it will go from here. So it is very easy to find out that thing. First, if at room temperature we are talking, then in case of hydrogen at room temperature all of the electrons are in the normal state or ground state. So it means that they are in n is equal to 1 state. So energy of n is equal to 1 state we can easily calculate by using this formula, minus 13.6 upon n square electron volt. So from here this first state energy is 13.6 electron volt. And here if this electron, so if this electron absorbs this energy, then it will go into any of the excited level. So the excited level will have the energy of this first level plus energy of absorbed photon here. So obviously if suppose that En is the excited level, so En can be written as minus 13.6 by n square, and it can also be calculated as minus 13.6 energy of first level plus energy of this photon. So this is obtained to be minus of 0.85. It means this will be equal to this, and from here we can easily calculate what is the value of n. So value of n is calculated here, and this will be equal to 4. It means that whenever electron will receive this amount of energy, then it will go in n is equal to 4 state. So our first answer is that it will excite into n is equal to 4 state. Second question, here number of questions are asked from this topic. If this electron is excited to n is equal to 4 state, then you know that obviously after some time it will again come back to its original state, its normal state, then automatically it will emit some of the radiation. So what is the way through which it can just come to the ground state, or how many number of spectrum you will get here? So we have to draw energy level diagram for this. So again to draw the energy level diagram, we can just make here n is equal to 4 state, this is, and obviously we know that spacing increases whenever the number of atomic state that is decreasing, n is equal to 2, and finally this is n is equal to 1 state we have. So if electron is in n is equal to 4 state, then this electron can adopt so many paths here. First, it can just come to this n is equal to 4 to 3. It can come to n is equal to 4 to 2. It can come to n is equal to 4 to directly n is equal to 1. Its final destination is n is equal to 1, but it can adopt so many paths here. Again, if this electron is n is equal to 3, this can come to n is equal to 2. This can come to n is equal to 1. And again, if this one is in n is equal to 2, this can come into n is equal to 1. Means overall 6 transitions are possible wherever electron will excite to n is equal to 4 state. So this is the energy level diagram for that. Next question is here, calculate the wavelength of every emitted radiation in this case. So suppose we have just denoted it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we have to calculate these all wavelengths that is emitted whenever electron is making transition from this higher state to this lower state. Then what will be the energy or what will be the wavelength that is emitted from here. So it is very easy to calculate the wavelength, as from Bohr model we know that Sc upon lambda, this is equal to En2 minus En1, where En2 is a higher state, En1 is lower state. So for first one, as we can see that it is making transition from n is equal to 4 to 3. Means if we will put here Sc upon lambda 1, we can calculate by E4 minus E3. And now we can easily write a value of E4 by using the formula En is equal to minus 13.6 upon n square. And even we have calculated its energy. This is equal to minus 0.85 electron volt. It has also energy, this is minus 13.6 electron volt. And you can also calculate the energy of n is equal to 3 and 2 by using this formula. And after that, if you will put the values, then we can calculate easily by using this concept the wavelength of each spectral lines here. So this calculation is just a work for you. You can do it by yourself, but still you have to practice on this. Number of questions are asked from here. Calculate the wavelength, calculate the energy, calculate the frequency. So in this manner you can calculate easily all the values here. Sorry guys. So now as we have just completed the chapter atoms, and today it's your exam RT examination also. So let's discuss nuclei chapter here, and mostly from nuclei chapter some of the conceptual problems that are very important here. So in that conceptual problem, first problem is that again, like in case of atoms we have atomic model, then in case of nucleus we have also nuclear model. So what is the nuclear model, or we can also call it, write down the theories behind the composition of nucleus, and also what is the properties of the nucleus, and numerical problem is asked on the properties of the nucleus also. So first let's see theoretical approach. So in from Rutherford model, it is clear that we have a positively charged nucleus. Later neutron was discovered, but before the discovery of neutron, and hypothesis for the composition of nucleus was given, and that hypothesis was proton neutron electron hypothesis. Means according to that hypothesis, in nucleus there is the presence of electron and proton both, and it means that according to that model, all of the protons are concentrated in nucleus, but electrons are distributed in such a manner that some of the electrons are in positively charged nucleus and some of the electrons are revolving around the nucleus. It means that electrons present in the nucleus also and outside the nucleus also. So this was the basic assumption behind the proton electron hypothesis about the composition of nucleus. But later the question, actually the important question that is asked here, what are the discrepancies in the case of the proton electron concept. So discrepancies here was that, first discrepancies is that to be in the nucleus, a particle should have a greater energy. So in that case, obviously particles mass should be greater here, and you know that electron is very lighter particle. It has only nearly 4 mega electron volt energy, but to be exist in nucleus it should have nearly 200 mega electron volt energy. So it means that if electron is not possessing that energy, then that there cannot be the presence of electron. Second concept here, if we will see the spin of spin and angular momenta of the nucleus, then that was not matched with the spin and angular momenta. Spin it is easy, but angular momenta of electron, that was not matched with the electrons. So number of problems arises there, as we have seen in the case of nucleus. It is very stable. Already nuclear forces are generated there, that are the strongest force in nature. Then that concept was very difficult to understand and very difficult to explain with the help of electron proton hypothesis. And also this is the complex thing. Some of the electrons are inside the nucleus, some of the electrons are outside the nucleus, and also inside the nucleus the electrons they are behaving differently, outside nucleus are behaving differently. But still with the statistical mechanics concept, it was clear that all the elementary particles are identical. Means if one electron has the property or the phenomena it is possessing, then that should be applied to all of the electrons. But here we are talking about two different behavior, that is not possible. So it means that electron proton hypothesis was not possible. So again when Chadwick just did an experiment when he bombarded neutrons on beryllium, then due to bombardment of neutrons on beryllium, neutral charge he just got, and its mass was nearly equal to the mass of proton. So earliest it was thought that it is also a proton, so that was called neutral proton that time. But later it was discovered that particle is neutral, that is behaving differently, and its mass is nearly equal to mass of proton, not exactly equal to mass of proton. And also that was neutral particle, that has no property of the proton there. But if the energy of that neutron is calculated, then that energy was comparable to the energy of nucleus to be exist in that. So later due to all the properties that is needed to be in nucleus, that was satisfied by the neutron. So neutron proton hypothesis was given, and that was accepted easily. The reason is that all the as nucleus constituent like neutron and proton both are satisfying all the properties of nucleus, so that's why they were constituent of the nucleus. So this was the basic composition theory, and this was asked always that why electron proton hypothesis is failed and what is the reason behind the success of proton neutron hypothesis. So simple, if you can understand the failure of electron proton hypothesis, then that is the reason of success of neutron proton hypothesis. Clear? Next here the important segment, that is nuclear properties. So only as in this chapter some of the topics are deleted from your syllabus, so that's why you don't have to study a lot in the chapter nuclei, but some of the only chapters here, nuclear properties, you have to just understand that, and after that nuclear reactions you have to study there. Radioactivity is deleted, so you don't have to study that. So first here in nuclear property, again like in case of atoms, any circular orbit that has radius and velocity, kinetic energy, that we have calculated by using Bohr model. Here also for nucleus it is assumed that, and obviously it is given by the Rutherford model, that nucleus is also spherical in shape. So if nucleus is spherical in shape, then definitely it will have some of the radius here. So it is seen that the radius of the nucleus, that is directly proportional to the 1/3 power of the atomic mass. So here one factor, atomic mass, will play a very important role while we are just studying the nuclear properties. Here we have seen the dependency of all the properties on atomic mass. So questions are important here. Means if you have two of the nuclei and you know their atomic masses, then you can just compare their radii, and also if you know radii of one, then you can calculate radii of other. So this was very easy while we are taking the concept of atomic mass here. So this is the radius that is directly proportional to this, and if you will just solve it, then the proportionality sign we will get here, and this proportionality sign has the value 1.5 for me, 1.2 for me to 1.5 for me it can be. Means minimum radius that is possible here, and that is obviously possible for hydrogen, as the atomic mass there that is equal to 1. So obviously in that case R will be equal to R0. Next second case that we have here, properties, surface area. So finally, if we are talking about any sphere, then you know that a sphere has radius, a sphere has surface area, a sphere has volume, then definitely these three properties we have studied here also. So if we are talking about the surface area, then you know that surface area is directly proportional to R square, or here we can write on both sides we can multiply here by 4 pi, or we can take just square here on both of the sides. So if we will take a square here, then this will be equal to R square, this is equal to R0 square a power 2 by 3 here, and if you will multiply 4 pi both of the side, then this will provide you the relationship between surface area of the nucleus. So it means that the surface area that is directly proportional to a power 2 by 3. So if numerical problem is asked to compare the surface areas, so that will be proportional to a power 2 by 3. That factor you have to keep in your mind. Third here, that is the volume of the nucleus. So here volume of the nucleus, it will see that, then obviously volume is 4 by 3 pi r cube. So let's just take the cube of this equation. So this will be equal to r cube, that is r0 cube, and this will be, if you will take cube, then this will be equal to a. It means that if you will multiply 4 by 3 pi, 4 by 3 pi, then its volume is directly proportional to a here. Clear? So this is the volume here that is directly proportional to the mass. Greater will be the mass, greater will be the volume of the nucleus. Clear? Next, an important conceptual problem here. Prove that here density of the nucleus that is independent of the atomic mass. Means whatever is the atomic mass, density of the mostly all of the nucleus are same here, whether the nuclei are lighter or massive. So let's see how can we get constant density here. So as density, you know that this is defined by mass per unit volume, and here the mass that we are talking, that is atomic mass. Volume that will be equal to V0 if in the place of, as we have V is equal to A for A. So as here this V is directly proportional to A, it means that this V will be equal to some V0 into A. Then the value of V0 that will be equal to 4 by 3 pi R0 cube. And here if we will see, then 4 by 3 pi, this is constant, R0 is also a constant. It means that as a whole V0 is a constant. Obviously this is proportionality constant. So if this A is cancelled out, then this density is obtained as a constant. Means whatever the nucleus that we are taking here, all of the nuclear density that will be constant to any value. It means from here you can see, whenever mass will increase, then according to that volume will also increase, as it is directly proportional. So due to increase in volume in the same amount as the mass, obviously density for whatever is the lighter or heavier nuclei, that will be nearly constant. Clear? As the next property is binding energy of nuclei. So binding energy is that energy that binds two nucleons together. So as nucleons, it means that we are talking about proton and neutron. Collectively they are called nucleon. So if two nucleons are binded together by some of the energy or force, that is known as binding energy. Or in another word, if you have to define it, it means that the energy that are needed to break two nucleons, then that is known as its binding energy. So basically from where we are getting this binding energy to bind two nucleons together, then if we have any massive particle, then according to Einstein's mass energy equivalence, obviously it will have, due to its mass, it will have some of the rest energy, and that rest energy is given by E is equal to m into c square. And obviously if any electron, we have neutron and proton, then neutron will have energy, proton will have energy. So suppose that we have to calculate the mass of whole of the nucleus, then the nuclear constituents we have proton and neutron. So if in any nucleus or any nuclei, suppose z number of protons we have, a is its atomic mass, then definitely its neutron number, that will be equal to a minus z, that you know already. So it means if we will calculate the mass of nucleus, then it should be equal to the mass of its constituent particles. So if z number of protons we have and mass of one proton is mp, then whole of the mass of protons will be zmp. And also if mass of one neutron is mn, suppose it is taking capital M, and here we know that a minus z number of neutrons are in the nucleus. So this should be the mass of the nucleus by using this constituent. But it has been seen that whenever we are just seeing the nuclear mass, that is always we are getting reduced in some amount than its sum of the constituent proton and neutron. It means that some of the mass is used somewhere. So this used mass or this reduced mass is known as mass defect in the case of nucleus. So if suppose we are calculating this nuclear mass, and we have just seen that this nuclear mass is somewhat less than this value. So suppose delta M mass is reduced from here. So this delta M is known as mass defect in the case of nucleus. So simple, sometimes numerical problems you that is asked to calculate the mass defect, and also after that we have to calculate the binding energy or mass defect energy. So obviously if this mass is defected, this mass is reduced, then this reduced mass is used as the energy to bind these two nucleons together. So it means that if we have to calculate the binding energy through which any nucleus is binded, then we have to just calculate mass defect. And if you know the mass of nucleus and obviously mass of proton and neutron, and you can just calculate number of protons and number of neutrons easily if any atom is given, then we can find out mass defect. And if you will multiply this mass defect by this c square here, so that we will get the energy that is known as binding energy of nucleus. So this binding energy, that is bind together any of the nucleus here, and obviously its value is very large. It means that two of the nucleons are binded with a large amount of energy. Then if we have to break that nucleon, then definitely we will again need a large amount of energy there, and that energy is not easy to provide from any of the instrument that we have. Only we can provide that energy by nuclear fission or fusion, but still you know that nuclear fusion process is not possible to do here. So that's why obviously you can say that we cannot break any of the nucleus. So it means the nucleus is most stable thing here, and also due to its high binding energy, the forces through which any two nucleons are binded, that is the strongest force in the nature we have. So simple nuclear forces are a strongest force. Due to this reason, they have high amount of binding energy, high amount of energy through which they are binded. So I think the binding energy and this is clear. And again, as binding energy per nucleon is dilated, but still we have just discussed it before in classes also. So I think that is remembered. In only binding energy per nucleon, we can divide it binding energy by number of nucleons, means number of protons plus number of neutrons, then that is called binding energy per nucleon, and we can draw the curve between binding energy per nucleon and atomic mass. So according to that curve we define the stability of the nuclei. Greater will be the binding energy per nucleon, greater will be the stability of the nuclei, and it is obtained the greater stability for iron that has 8.8 mega electron volt energy there. Clear? Next question here, write down the properties of nuclear forces. So as I just told you, nuclear forces are that forces that are responsible for the nuclear stability, or simple nucleus are nucleons are binded by the force that is known as nuclear forces here. So basically, to understand the concept of nuclear forces, we have some models, like we have liquid rock model. So as in the case of liquid, we just define the force that is existing between any liquid molecules, that is the surface tension there. So the same role as surface tension is doing there, here nuclear forces are doing. So basically nuclear forces has all that properties of surface tension also, means it has tendency to minimize the surface area of the nucleus so that it can be stable, and also it has another properties also, like it has exchange nature, it has saturation nature. So like if we are talking about the exchange nature, for that one theory is very important here, and that can be asked. So that is Yukawa concept. So according to Yukawa concept, nuclear forces are generated by the transfer or by the interconversion of nucleons in each other. Means he just gave the concept of the presence of pi meson particles in the nucleus, and with the help of pi meson particles, neutrons are continually converted into protons or neutrons. Any proton can be converted into neutron or proton. Neutron can be converted into neutron. Proton can be converted into proton. It means that nucleons are interconvertible in each other by using that pi meson particle, and in that way they maintain their stability. And reason is that as in nucleus, its dimension is very small, and in that small dimension, if greater number of protons are here, then we know that all protons are positively charged. Then why obviously you know that positive charges will repel each other. Means if they are just showing the repulsive property on each other, then definitely they will there will be some loss in the nuclear energy to overcome that repulsive power. So ultimately the nuclear energy that should be reduced, but that is not reduced, and even nucleus is the most stable thing. So how it is possible? So to make for that stability problem, this exchange property is given by the Yukawa. Means that proton is never been the only state of proton, it is converted into neutron also. So it means that in the meantime, when they will repel each other, that time proton will be converted into neutron, and we know that there is no interaction between any charged particle and neutral particle. So obviously overall there is no repulsive forces that can reduce the energy of nuclear forces. And if you have to just write the reaction in which they are converted into each other, then you can write it. So if any neutron is converted, firstly pi meson particles, we have three kinds of particles in that is called family of pi meson. So here pi plus, pi minus and pi 0 we have. This is positive pi meson, negative pi meson and neutral pi meson. So by using these three particles, they can interconvertible into each other. Like neutron can be converted into proton by emitting a pi negative pi meson here. So obviously you can see that here the charge of the here this side is 0, this side is also 0. Means all the conservation law will be hold here also, as the mass of these two are nearly equal, and obviously these are massless particles. Clear? So there is no change in any kind of change in the conversion process. So it means that simple they can interconvertible by using these particles. Also, neutron can be converted into proton by absorbing a pi plus particle. It can convert it. Means they are free to absorb my mesons, they are free to emit mesons. So simple, the concentration of pi mesons is always maintained. You can say that they are only providing an intermediate to make the stability of the nuclei. They have only that role. They are not created, they are not destroyed. They are only used in the process. Means in some process they will be absorbed, in some process they will be emitted. So as a whole, if you will just see their number, that will be always conserved in the nucleus. In the same way, you can understand, if any proton is converting into neutron, then this emit here pi plus particle, or if any proton is absorbing any pi particle, then this is converted into neutron. Again, if any proton is converting into proton, this can emit neutral pi meson, or if any proton is absorbing this can convert it. In the same manner, neutron can be converted into neutron by absorption or emission of neutral pi particle. Clear? So in these way, number of ways you are seeing, they are exchangeable in each other, and due to their exchangeable nature, repulsive power or repulsive force between any two proton, that is not existed. Reason is that until they will repel, then that time one proton will be converted into neutron. So obviously there will be no repulsion between that two particles. So the nuclear energy is maintained in this way, and nuclear forces are strongest in this way. So basically in this chapter these topics were important that we have discussed, and the next topic that is important, nuclear fission and fusion. And in case of nuclear fission and fusion, basically the things here that are important, like the chain reaction. So chain reaction, you know, whenever any on any uranium neutrons are bombarded and krypton and barium is obtained, and also 3 neutrons we are getting and a large amount of energy we are getting. So whenever that 3 neutrons are free to bombard on any uranium particle, then a chain will be started. In every reaction, if we are using 1 neutron, there is the emission of 3 neutron. So these 3 neutrons will just start a huge reaction chain there, and if it will not be controlled, then that time a blast will be there within few seconds, like if we are making the nuclear atomic bomb based on that. And if we will control some of the neutrons there by some process, like if 3 neutrons are emitted and we have just blocked 2 of the neutrons, only 1 neutron is again able to attack on somewhere or bombard on somewhere, then obviously the energy will be constant and also reaction will be controlled, and that process is used to make electric energy. So that's why in the both way, as one is destroyed way, second is useful way, we are using nuclear reactions there. And also in nuclear fusion, 2 or more nuclei that are fused together to give any higher nuclei, and a large amount of energy is released there. And also to start or to fuse 2 of the nuclei together, we need a large amount of energy, and that is provided by the you can say that nuclear fission. So that's why in Earth we cannot even start the nuclear fusion reaction. So basically nuclear fusion is we are getting in the case of stars. So they are basic cause behind the energy of the stars there. So I think now the chapter is clear. So just end the chapter here, study a lot. Here also study about the nuclear reactors and their components. So basically we have just discussed it. So later we will discuss semiconductor devices and its numerical problem. So let's just end the class here today. Yes. Thank you for the class.